design, cutting-edge 3D printing system design and fabrication, pharmaceutical design, medical device system engineering, including software development. He has led and participated in many research and commercial studies involving the development and testing of medical devices, biological equipment, biomaterials, and much more. He is our next speaker who will be speaking about non-dilutive government funding, providing small business a means and a reason to innovate. A very insightful talk, especially for many of our audience members here today. And good morning, Ryan.
Good morning. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. I appreciate that introduction. Let's see, are we sharing okay here? Share screen. I think my share got kicked off here. All right, here we go. Let's try not to mess this up virtually. All right. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. This has been such a great event so far, and I'm honored to be here today to discuss a little bit of my life over the past few years through a talk entitled Non-Dilutive Government Funding, Providing Small Business a Means and a Reason to Innovate. So who's talking? Who am I? My name is Ryan Myers. That picture to the right here is from the day that I married my best friend. I met her after receiving my bachelor's in mechanical engineering with a minor in biomechanics at Northeastern University. Go Huskies. She then put up with me during my PhD in bioengineering at Northeastern. Go Huskies. And cheered me on as I transitioned to industry with Vivonix. I currently serve as lead engineer and director of business development at Vivonix, which basically means I do far, far too much. However, that is not what is currently demanding the bulk of my attention. I am the proud father of a 4-month-old son, and I mention that because, well, first, it's awesome, but perhaps more relevant is that I'm hoping that it absolves me of really any missteps or miscommunications or inconsistencies in this talk. I can really only use that excuse for a limited amount of time, so I'm milking it for everything that I can. So where am I speaking from? That's kind of an interesting, unfortunate question since I don't get to be in person with all of you today. That said, it is kind of cool that I get to call in from Boston and reach people from California or France, or I guess Boston too. I see some people from Vivonix on. Vivonix is a small business located just outside of Boston, Massachusetts in Bedford, whose mission is to take clinical solutions and push them outside the clinic, specifically as it refers to physiological monitoring, advanced diagnostics, and clinical decision support technologies. So really what we're talking about is taking these solutions, reimagining them through innovative engineering approaches, and pushing them into areas where they are not traditionally seen but gravely needed, with limited resources and negligible support. Founded in 2012 as an offshoot of InfoSciTechs, our team has leveraged non-dilutive funding to produce multiple commercialization success stories over the past 10 years, and are experiencing another growth spurt from 13 employees to around 20 employees this year alone. And what do I have to do with Vivonix? Over the past 4 years, I've successfully brought in around $10 million in non-dilutive funding for various projects from various agencies across the DoD, CDMRP, and NIH. As director, I support a group that brings in over $5 million annually, again in non-dilutive funding. We partner with clinical leaders around the country to leverage these funds to innovate around medical care, from TBI to hearing loss, from novel wearables to innovative physiological parameter detecting cameras, from point of injury acute care through chronic monitoring for physiological anomaly. We leverage non-dilutive funding internally. We help large businesses innovate with less risk. We help clinicians and researchers transition their work to the commercial sector. And we help government agencies chart the landscape for the future. Non-dilutive funding is really kind of what we do. So why are we here? What are we talking about? I really want to share my experience of mine with you, but I want to focus on how research and development non-dilutive funding can help small businesses, and how it can help basically everyone that wants to partner with those small businesses. And I emphasize that word small because I do want to point out the difference between a company that has 20 strong and a company that is 200 strong. A business that can be up to 500 employees to apply for a small business non-dilutive funding grant in the U.S. For both large and small businesses, the realities are different, the benefits are different, the challenges are different. So for small businesses, when non-dilutive funding is done correctly, it could give them the means to innovate not otherwise available to them. Perhaps more importantly, it gives you room to fail without seriously impacting the company. $200,000 is a lot of money to invest into a new, risky idea for a small business, one that could honestly break it. However, the same sum of money from a non-dilutive source can lead to multiple benefits for the funding source, the company, the scientific community, even if that research, quote unquote, fails. When done wrong, it can be downright destructive. It can cause distractions to the business's true mission. It can become a big investment if you allow it. The nuances of the proposal process are intense and unforgiving, making it difficult to project revenue, volume, and timing, as well as make it difficult not to run for a computer to check your NIH score on Christmas Eve, which is a true story and did not turn out well on multiple levels. Non-dilutive funding is not for every or even most businesses, and reliance on it can lead to losing that business simply waiting on the funding to come in. But don't worry, you have me. So how do we do it right? How do you do it right? How do we help you do it right? I have no idea. All jokes aside, this isn't going to be a recipe for complete success in every situation. It may not be a recipe for success in any situation. But what I'm hoping to provide is a backdrop for where non-dilutive funding can be a useful tool in medical device development, and hopefully where it might not be, which may be more important. So let's get into it. Actually, that's not my son, but I had to get a cute baby photo in here somewhere for him. So there's kind of a theme running out throughout this presentation here. First, foundation is key to leveraging non-dilutive funding. Specifically, your business model needs to make room for non-dilutive funding. If you're a large company looking to partner with a small company to innovate quicker and cheaper, you need to allow for the investment into managing that. Your model needs to support the small business through mutually beneficial licensing deals or future IP agreements. Partnering with a small business like this can mean earlier touch points to innovation that can allow you to reduce risk, still innovate, and reduce the overall price point when you decide to fold that innovation back into your company at the end of the day. But if that full spectrum does not fit your model, which is totally okay, you may do well to just focus your energy elsewhere, like on more traditional tech scouting. If you're a small business, it is almost the exact opposite. Non-dilutive funding needs to be a means to an end and not an end. What I mean is you need to understand the full spectrum of where this innovation begins, where it will take you, what it will take to get there, and how you are going to take what it will take to get there. Because non-dilutive funding simply won't cover the costs in the medical field 99% of the time, from innovation all the way through market release and FDA approval. If you don't appreciate this spectrum, things may die on the vine, you won't get to market, and all the money and energy that you invested in that is going to be for naught. You can use it as a piece for your raise, as a start for your tech development, as a shotgun of ideas, as a number of different things, but it truly needs to be integrated into your business model or it may end up eating you alive. So how does the Vivonix do this? It's kind of a case study. We've decided to build a business model around non-dilutive funding as, again, a means to an end. We leverage this funding as the majority, but not all, of our R&D currently to push medical device technologies to an inflection point where we have both de-risked the technology and defined the path forward in detail. This allows us to commercialize in one of a few different ways. It lays on the table the cost and the time to market if we choose to internally fund and commercialize the device. It also de-risks the technology and maximizes our stake in the technology if a spin-off through private sector dollars is in order. It similarly de-risks the technology and maximizes the IP value if an acquisition is the most appropriate at the end of the day. I like to think of this as an innovate, fund, commercialize model, though it does not always kind of play out that way in that order. Through this model, Vivonix Technologies have raised over $40 million in private sector dollars following successful commercialization events over the years. A collaborator of ours is another test case or another case study has taken a different model where they pushed to commercialization very, very early and began generating product sale revenue. Some of you may already kind of be in this space if you're a small business. What our collaborators did was then leverage these revenues and these products to iterate or innovate through non-dilutive funding and move those new projects through the development pipeline with non-dilutive funding in the same way that Vivonix does, to a point where they can commercialize without an extravagant amount of internal funding and risk. One last kind of case study was yet another collaborator of ours who used non-dilutive funding to subsidize their startup efforts in the medical device space to de-risk their technology coming out of academia so that they can get a seed round of private funding thereafter. Ultimately, they went far quicker than the non-dilutive funding could move, but they also didn't let the non-dilutive funding distract or slow them from their mission. Regardless of how you choose to leverage non-dilutive funding, it must be built into your foundation as a group or as a company. I also suggest swimming with the current. This doesn't mean to go half speed and follow the school downstream, actually just the opposite. But please use the non-dilutive funding for what it is intended for. Use it as a means to innovate in the medical device space. Use it as a means to de-risk your technology development efforts. Use it as a means to move novel concepts towards commercialization. Not everybody does this. In fact, some companies have made not doing this into a very, very effective business model. But the most effective way to leverage this funding is to use it for what it is intended for. After all, it's our tax dollars at work here. And how would you like your tax dollars spent? Ideas are easy to come by. They can pop up as a stroke of genius in the shower in the morning. They can iron themselves out in a brainstorm meeting over your first cup of coffee with the team. They can be an idea that you've been sitting on for decades that you just haven't had the right opportunity to act on. Ideas are everywhere, and unfortunately, they're relatively worthless by themselves. Working on your idea is where the value comes in. Running that idea to ground, defining the questions and the holes in your idea, and filling them with bulletproof mortar. That is where ideas become fundable. However, that is also the hard part. So don't blame people for kind of stalling at that stage. It takes time, it takes money, commitment, belief, and let's be fair, it takes quite a bit of luck to turn an idea into something more than an idea. The fun part is that you have to get your idea pretty dang rounded out, because the current pay lines are for a lot of agencies are about the top 5 to 10% of applications. So just out hustle that other 95% and make it happen. But you have to put in the work to get there, which is like kind of anything else in this space. Part of rounding out the idea is realizing that you cannot do it alone. You can't know it all. You can't execute it all. Heck, you can't even round out the entire idea on your own. And I say this mostly to myself, but no, Ryan, you cannot do it all. You may be the expert of experts in the science behind your idea, but your organization won't have the expertise on how users will accept that science at the end of the day. You may understand precisely how to get to market, but you won't understand how to design towards mill standard. You may have the engineering expertise, but you need stakeholder and clinical insight. Sure, you're smart, you can learn all of this or hire all of this, But non-dilutive funding streams don't give you the time or funds to do that. And that's not only okay, it's by design. Collaborate, partner, consult, contract, divide to conquer is not only a temporally and fiscally responsible means of leveraging the limited funding provided by many of these agencies, it is also a winning combination. Think about it. If you're reviewing an application, would you fund one organization saying that they can do everything? Or would you fund a team made up of experts in their fields brought together for one cause? The expert scenario is just far less risky. It's far more likely to lead to the best possible solution. It's a better use of your money as an agency. To shamelessly plug Vivonix, there are groups out there that have embedded these funding streams into what they do every single day and are always looking for opportunities to partner their expertise with yours. Whether you are a large company looking to innovate, a physician looking to conduct research, a researcher looking to translate, find these partners and establish a mutually beneficial relationship, like with Vivonix. All right, so we've talked about building non-dilutive funding into your business model, leveraging non-dilutive funding for what it is intended for, working on your ideas and partnering as good rules of thumb when innovating via non-dilutive funding. Now, what to look out for. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a minefield out there. Non-dilutive funding is not easy. The conversion percentages are tough, both in a business sense as well as a personal emotion sense. Getting your ideas critiqued by a mysterious reviewer can be a tough pill to swallow. Luckily, hopefully, maybe I can help. I may not be able to reveal every mind, but I think here are a few that I don't see as talked about as much when talking about non-dilutive funding. First, per the title of my talk, non-dilutive funding gives us a reason to innovate, which surprisingly is not always a good thing. This is a weird thing to say, but just because you can get money does not mean that it is a good idea to get that money. If you are pushing your novel aptamer technology to market with 85% of your resources allocated towards it, and you have the equipment and company infrastructure to solicit and win a new elastomeric chain that can cure cancer, first, that's awesome. Second, you're going to end up pulling away from your market push to likely underperform in an area where you don't actually have expertise. This doesn't mean you shouldn't push the boundaries of science or even push your boundaries as a company, but balance your responsibilities and your vision, and non-dilutive funding can actually be beneficial to both. Maybe you're new to this and maybe you're seasoned. However, in both cases, you will have to talk about your company when asking for money. There's definitely a tendency to talk your team up more than may actually be true, but they deserve it, right? I mean, your team is the best, and you should be shouting it from the rooftops, honestly. What I'm cautioning against is embellishing yourselves internally. It is so easy to think that because you did this and it's close to that you can, and let's just say stay consistent here, cure cancer. Similar to my last suggestion, don't let this caution keep you from pushing the limits. Just try not to embellish yourselves to the point where you begin to propose scope and budget that gets your company in a pinch on a routine basis. This will likely lead you to low conversion rates between bouts of funding on a project, use of internal funds to cover out overages, and let's be fair, a pretty angry CEO. Scope creep is a reality, and you cannot predict how research will go. But if this is consistently happening to you, you may be overinflating yourselves internally, thinking you can get the job done in less time for less money and with more bells and whistles. That said, sell your fantastic team to the reviewers. If you know that your team can execute the scope you proposed, let the world know how amazing Mickey and Mechanical is at designing fixtureless electrical boards into impossibly beautiful enclosures over her lunch break, or how amazing Saukada in Biomed is at developing the most hauntingly realistic physiological phantoms because you simply can't find them commercially, or how amazing your PM Chris is because He not only holds down a dynamic, multidisciplinary team, but does so in a way that invites collaboration, camaraderie, and downright friendship among his group. Make sure the reviewers know that your team, both internally and externally, can handle the proposed scope and more. If you know that they can handle it, of course. By the way, those are a few of my team members, and that was not even close to an embellishment. As you traverse the landscape of non-dilutive funding, know that the process has its nuances. Each agency has specific submission and funding time windows. They tend to have fairly long response times to your proposals, and there's steep competition. These are just a few of the little bits that you will learn along the way, and things that you will have to overcome to succeed. And unfortunately, these nuances are not across the board. A CDMRP is different than a DoD SBIR, is different than an NIH STTR, is different than an MTech RPP. Outside of the fact that pretty much every funding agency is made up of an acronym. Again, if you're new to this, or if you don't care to learn these nuances, that is really, really okay. There are resources out there to support you, especially through the agency soliciting the proposals. Read the instructions, ask questions, talk to the points of contact, and team up with someone who has done it before, whether purely to help in the proposal writing process or to execute the project, or both. But unless you leverage some of these resources, like, say, Vivonix, you're starting behind the eight ball. Finally, watch out for that red tape. It is the government, after all, right? If you're fortunate enough to win non-dilutive funding, there are a ton of regulations that you need to be sure to follow, and oftentimes contracts that bound you to them. Not to harp on this, but there are services galore to help with everything from data security to accounting to inventory management. Just make sure that you're complying with these regulations at the same time that you are spending that money on innovating devices that will save the world. So now you're ready, right? Now you know how to fit the non-dilutive funding into the research and development department of your organization, whether very, very large organizations through partnering with small, nimble companies, or very, very small organizations by building out a team to support your expertise. More importantly, I hope that some of you now know it won't fit into your companies, meaning either you won't wedge it in a way that doesn't fit, or you simply won't wedge it in because it won't fit. Sometimes not doing something makes you more money at the end of the day than doing it in the first place. And I would be remiss here not to offer this parting message that you do not have to go it alone, nor should you. We have collaborations all over the country, from not-for-profits to Fortune 500, and from enormous research hospitals to retired academics following their dreams. We aren't a design house. We aren't a consulting shop. We are not a proposal writing machine. But we are great at what we do, which is leveraging non-dilutive funding to provide the research and development expertise that can give medical device ideas the legs that they need to reach the market. Please reach out to me directly if you have any questions, collaboration opportunities, or honestly, some kid-friendly day activities in Charlotte, North Carolina, because the family is taking their first vacation here over the 4th. Jokes aside, though, if you ever need any help in this space, please reach out. I have a lot of friends in the sector, and if we aren't really the group to support you, which is also totally fine, I'm sure that I can recommend somebody very capable in your space. Thank you for your attention today, and best of luck with non-dilutive funding.
Thank you so much, Ryan, for your amazing, very useful presentation, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience that can definitely take advantage of some of the resources that you mentioned. Over here in Canada, we have a program called SHRED, SRED, which is the Scientific Research and Experimental Development Program. So, small businesses and companies conducting research get, I think, a certain tax credit from the government, tax credit financing, etc., to encourage investment. So I'm just wondering if down there in Massachusetts, if you guys have something similar.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We have, like I said, there's kind of nuances across the board. I talked a lot about kind of the national level things that we have in the U.S.
Mhm.
But even in Massachusetts alone, there are multiple agencies that are funded by the state that will do. They will match your grant from somewhere else in order to kind of spin up your manufacturing space or your capital investment.
Yeah.
There's places that will kind of support you through some of the nuances of pushing the limits on electronics through innovative grants, tax breaks. I'm sure there's something there, right? But there's so much support, I think, around this space that sometimes just navigating, that area is a little tricky. So I do encourage wherever you are, not only look at the national level, but look even on your state level or is that's still a national Canadian initiative. But even looking on the province level, right, or even kind of even more local than that, right? Sometimes we're in Boston, they have Boston initiatives as well. So look, right, people are there to help. They're not always the best at advertising that help, but they're there to help. So leverage them.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was very good. And I'm wondering, can we share your slides with those that requested after the talk?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful, wonderful. So again, I do want to thank Ryan for his amazing presentation and his time today. You can learn more about what his company is doing coming to Vivonix.com or visiting their LinkedIn page. They're very active with their LinkedIn marketing, and you can learn more about what they're developing. And yeah, with that said, we will be heading over now to our next presenter, Gerald. So let's all